lot about, like, obviously the discussion topic is decarbonization, and that's why all of us have been focusing a lot on CO2 emissions, CO2 equivalent emissions. But the same sector or the same fuels which result into CO2 emissions are also responsible for something which is not so global, which is something which impacts all of us in our daily lives, and that's air pollution. I'll be speaking more from the perspective of how the technologies in the coal sector are either resulting into emission reduction from coal-based power generation or have the potential to do that. And what do we really need to do to ensure that we move on that pathway and ensure lower air pollution levels and health impacts. Before I start, I'm from Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air. We are a research group which works globally. We mostly do look at air quality and energy trends in geographies which are more impacted by the air pollution and the coal-based power generation. That's the geographies we mostly focus on. We conduct these research health modeling reports majorly for campaigning groups, for organizations, research institutions, as well as governments, and then this research at times have resulted into some significant policy level change across different geographies. Now, coming back to air pollution, before I start speaking more specifically on coal, we all know that India is one of the most polluted countries. We know that the pollution which we are facing today is not caused by just one factor or one sector. We have for a long time been discussing about transportation sector being the one major sector which pollutes. But since 2017, we have also started seeing an uprise in the discussions about farmers being the primary reason for increasing air pollution levels. And since then, it's been a blame game between the urban community and the rural community. So whenever there are high pollution levels, the urban community says that it's the farmers who are causing pollution, and whenever you talk to any farmer, they will be saying it's the urban lifestyle of using one car every person in the cities which is causing those kind of pollution levels. And what happens behind all that is all those institutional sectors or the big sectors, big polluting sectors, or the institutions and governments, enforcement agencies behind controlling pollution from big organized sectors, they keep hiding behind people year after year. And that's what I'll be talking about, one of those sectors, and that's coal. I'm sure all of us here would know about coal being, like we have talked a lot about 74% of our electricity coming from coal. We know that it's one of the most polluting sector. We also know that till 2015, there was only regulation to limit or control PM emissions from coal-based power plant. There was no SO2 emissions, NOx emissions, mercury emissions were not even controlled, or there were no regulations to control them. The only kind of regulation which we had in place was to dilute these pollutants, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, by creating a higher chimney height or a stack height, so that pollution doesn't settle very near to the power plant and it get dispersed to long distances. There is a lot of research both in India as well as globally which says that emissions from that 270 meter high stack from a coal-based power plant travels to hundreds of kilometers, and that with recognition of the dispersion to such high distances, as well as contribution of these gases, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, in forming the secondary particulate matter, which is a part of PM 2.5, which are finer particles to which our body hasn't yet developed any defense mechanism or a control mechanism, because they were not found naturally and they are very fine particles. Like PM10, I'm not sure how many of us know about PM10. PM10 particles are also air pollutants, but they are slightly coarser, and PM10 particles also comes from natural sources such as dust storms, plantations and other things, and we have always been evolving with those natural sources, and that's why our body has developed defense mechanisms to trap them or not allow them to penetrate within our body, be it nostril hairs or mucous membrane in our trachea, which stops these PM10 particles. But PM 2.5 has been more and more released at around the same time, since we started consuming more fossil fuel, since the GHG emissions have started rising, because they find their source in the fossil fuel consumption. And that's why over a shorter period, we have been exposed to very high pollution levels of PM 2.5, which our body couldn't cope with and haven't developed any defense mechanism with, and because of which we face severe health crisis in today's world. So, power generation is one of the primary or leading sectors which contributes to roughly about 15 to 20% on an all India average basis over a year. Obviously, in certain geographies like Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, MP, it can be much higher, and in other geographies like Kerala and even parts of Tamil Nadu, this contribution can be slightly lower. But if we take the average, it contributes to about 15 to 20% of overall pollution load or pollution exposure in India. Now, to control pollution from these power plants in 2015, Ministry of Environment and Forest came up with a notification wherein new guidelines or safety limits were prescribed for different pollutants. Obviously, for PM, we have kind of strengthened them very significantly and plan to bring the pollution or PM emissions down to 30 microgram, which earlier were more than 100. And we have fairly been doing decent in terms of complying to PM norms. Most of the power plants or a lot of the power plants are near this norm. But it is sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide which are a bit challenging, and it is also a fact that about 96% of the pollution or PM emissions from a coal-based power plant are coming from secondary gases. So if a power plant consumes coal, it emits some PM 2.5 directly, and then it emits the gases. These gases within few hours reacts with each other and reacts with other naturally occurring ammonia and other compounds and form secondary particulate. So that's why controlling sulfur dioxide is one of the key criteria to reduce pollution burden from these power plants. Now, in terms of technology, this technology of controlling sulfur dioxide in form of flue gas desulfurization, direct sorbent injection, or circularized fluid bed reactors is available, has been tested and employed globally. US has done it 15-20 years back, China has done it 10 years back, and we within India also have huge local manufacturing capacity of such equipments. But the sad reality is that initially when they were given 2 years in 2015 to retrofit to this technology, till now only less than 4% of the capacity, coal-based capacity, only about 16 gigawatt out of 208 odd gigawatt has installed flue gas desulfurization. That leaves 96% of the capacity without these controls, and it's been 8 years. There have been multiple discussions about it. We also know that most of the capacity, about 100 odd gigawatts, has awarded the bids or awarded the tenders for FGD to be installed. We'll look more into details of it. How are we doing in terms of even though a company awards the bid, does that really mean the FGD system will be installed or has been installed? Sadly, the truth is that it's the awarding of the bid doesn't really translate into installation of these equipments, and we keep facing the pollution problem, and the power plants keep spewing these pollutants into the air. This is a all India case, but we have also looked a bit more deeply into NTPC, which is one of the major power producers in India, about 60 gigawatt of installed coal-based capacity out of 208. They were the first movers. So NTPC being a public authority, and this kind of notification coming from the Ministry of Environment and Forest, CPCB was the one who, after a lot of pushback from the industry, from the Association for Power Producers and others, had been answering them well and telling them that this has a scientific basis, which it has, and it should be implemented to reduce air pollution levels. So realizing all those things, being a public company, NTPC way back in 2018 at least, after 3 years of notification being enforced, started awarding bids very aggressively. And we see that about 90% of their capacity or 95% of their capacity has awarded the bids. Now, both NTPC, CPCB, MOFCC, and CA as well has been saying that it takes roughly about 18 to 36 months to install these pollution control technologies at a power plant. So then, why is it that even after 8 years we still have less than 4% of retrofittation? The reason lies in that even the early movers like NTPC, which awarded most of their bids before 2020, and since then it's been more than 36 months. So technically and ideally, all these power plants with NTPC should have operational FGDs, but only 3 gigawatt has operational FGD right now. So why does that happen? The primary reason for that to happen is the government's response, or how are they handling the situation. And we had been talking about that the industry or the economics of controlling pollution or emissions will take its own course and will resolve all the problems. But sadly, the industry, and there was another discussion in the earlier section that it should be the companies or industries look for economic benefits and not always really care about the social welfare or air pollution or human health damage, and that's what's very clearly depicted here. In 2015, the notification came, gave 2 years, the deadline lapsed. I was the petitioner in a PIL at NGT in 2016, where we kind of approached NGT asking or telling the NGT that what we see in the progress happening is not very satisfactory, and all of these units will be non-complying. That's why you should take certain action right now so that we can ensure compliance. The deadline passed. They were given new deadlines for 2020 for Delhi NCR power plants, 2022 for all other power plants. Again, the deadline passed. Then a new extension was given, and that new extension gave staggered timeline of 2022 to 24, depending on 3 categories which were made under that. And again, for category A and B, that deadline has already passed. For category C, again, 2024 is the deadline, and most of the power plants were going to go beyond that deadline as well. And that's why, anticipating that, there was a new deadline given, and now that new deadline is running from 2025, 24 to 26. So that says that rather than penalization or strict enforcement, all these big polluters have been given extensions, and with those extensions, there have been dilution, two dilution, one of the water norms, one water consumption norms, another one of NOx emission norms. And that's the kind of cause which even NTPC anticipated, that even if we comply, there is no incentive for us, and nobody else is going to do that. Why should we do it? Nobody cares about the pollution, and it is going to add 50 to 70 paisa extra to the electricity per unit cost, which ultimately has to be passed on to the consumer. But that's the only, so the argument, environment, sustainability, climate change, everything is on the renewable energy side. The only argument which coal had was that it's not economically viable to have everything on renewable energy, and we need coal, which is indigenous and which still plays a crucial role and is slightly cheaper in certain geographies, and they want to give last fight to keep alive. Now, why should we install FGDs? We know that while we are decarbonizing, coal is not going to go away tomorrow or even within next 10 years. And while we are decarbonizing, the emissions, air pollutant emissions from these coal-based power plants have to come down. We know that coal consumption every year is increasing. This year we might cross 800 million ton. Coal-based capacity has been increasing, and this is an assessment which we are working on right now, that if we don't install FCTs, we are emitting about 3.7 to 4 million million ton of SO2 every year from these power plants. But if we install FGDs, we'll reduce it by about 65% to 1.3 million ton. We have the sectoral breakup. We are working on a plant-wise breakup of these emission reduction potential. This is a study which we did in 2020, where we looked at only Delhi NCR power plants, and you can very clearly see that a power plant, Mahatma Gandhi is the power plant which has FGD installed. The emissions, SO2 emissions from that plant are only about 0.7 gram per kilowatt hour, compared to other plants which on an average have about 3.5 gram per kilowatt hour. So there is huge reduction in SO2 emissions if we install FGD, which so on the left side you see a graph which shows modeling of how the pollutants are traveling not just to the vicinity of the power plants, but 300 to 400 kilometers away from the power plants, and you can see all those dispersion as well as black hotspots near the power plants. Now, these emissions are not just resulting into higher air pollution levels. Obviously, people have multiple views on it, but the science is very clear that wherever there is high air pollution, there will be health impacts and there will be economic damage. And in this assessment, we looked at how much health damage are these power plants doing and what is the potential of reducing that health damage if we install FGD. And we found that only 13 gigawatt out capacity in Delhi NCR 300 kilometer radius. According to 2018 operational data or electricity generation data, we looked at that and we looked at a nearly 100% PLF operation, and we found that these power plants are resulting into operation of these power plants will at full steam will result into about 8,000 premature deaths, which can be brought down to about 3,100. So there is huge benefit of installing these devices. These are all other statistics. Another very key statistic is that because of the higher air pollution without FGD, there are about 8.6 million absent days from work. Because of operation of these power plants. This is all within a year annual data, and that can be brought down to 3.2 million. So that means that power plants will still be producing electricity, they will still be operating, but their impact on air pollution and human health and economy of the region will come down if we install these controls. In terms of way forward, obviously we have failed multiple times, and the primary reason for failing is a robust regulatory framework where we don't penalize the non-compliance, rather we award extensions and dilutions. That should change, and there should be a strict penalization mechanism for these power plants. We also fail because we always set a deadline 3 years from now, and we don't track the progress, or even if we track the progress, we don't take any action in between. So we need to have interim milestones. We know that after awarding a bid, it takes 36 months. So why shouldn't we penalize the power plants which have not awarded the bid 36 months before the bid, 36 months before the deadline for the power plant is? Why should we wait for three years? So we should have interim milestones. We should enhance transparency through public reporting. So nobody knows about what's happening in terms of what percentage of civil construction, what percentage of financial spendings have been done on installing these FGDs, and there is no information in public domain. The only time we come to know about it is either through filing RTIs or whenever the deadline passes and there is a report on this. So there should be more public reporting of the progress, and more than that, even if some power plants install FGD, they are not operating these FGDs because it adds to certain cost, limestone consumption, transportation of limestone, gypsum and other things. So they don't operate the FGDs, and that's why we need, so there is a Supreme Court guideline of sharing the CEMS, continuous emission monitoring station data, in the public domain, but sadly most of the states don't really do that, and there needs to be a consistent mechanism of providing that data in public domain. So these are all the things which we should adopt, and a larger role will be played by the citizens and the research institutions and civil society organizations in demanding that, because all the regulatory framework for doing all of this exists. It's just not done, and that's an example. I'm sure for steel, cement, and aluminium, the emission standards have been notified or modified since 2014. For others in 2016. So if thermal power generation sector, which is so talked about and so well known among the research institutions, I don't know what's the level of compliance for other sector. We'll hear more on those tomorrow in the subsequent sections. The only thing is, we should learn from our past mistakes and course correct for the thermal power generation sector. And secondly, we shouldn't repeat this mistake in other sectors and enhance public transparency on that. Yeah, that's all I had. I'll be happy to discuss more on this. Thank you.